Hi there, wormies. What does autism look like? It's often a feeling of there being something different, but not in an obvious way that's easy to point out, especially in women and girls who go undiagnosed because it looks so normal to the outside observer. Just a few little quirks. Invisible Differences is the story of Julie Dachez, a late diagnosed autistic woman from France. Welcome to my channel. You've come to the right place to be your authentic, weird, and wormy self. I'm Hannah. I have autism and ADHD, and I make weekly videos rating the representation of neurodiversity in the media so you can make an informed decision on what to read or watch. Hit that like and subscribe button to join the neurodiverse bookworm family so you don't miss out on my latest recommendation. I found Invisible Differences when I was looking on Amazon for books to read in Portuguese. So I read this book first in Portuguese when I was in Brazil studying for my Portuguese level test. And eu gostei desse livro. I liked this book. Eu compartilhei com algumas pessoas lá no instituto onde eu trabalhei. I shared it with some of the people at the institute I worked at. J'espère de le lire en français un jour. I hope to read it in the original French one day. And honestly, if I had known it was a graphic novel, I probably would not have bought it because I'm not really into reading comic book type of stuff. But the title intrigued me. The art, the cover art was gorgeous. I absolutely loved this book. And I'm glad I didn't originally know it was a graphic novel, or I probably wouldn't have bought it. Invisible Differences was written by an autistic woman and illustrated by an autistic woman. And they dedicate it to you, the deviants, people who are too much like this or not enough like that. You, who simply, by existing, transgress established norms. You, who thumb your nose at the dictates of normality. There's nothing in you that needs healing, nothing that needs to change. Your role is not to fit into a mold, but rather to help others, all others, out of the molds they've been trapped in. You're not here to follow some preordained path, but rather the opposite, to make your own way in the world and invite those around you to stray from their well-trodden paths. By embracing your truest self, making peace with your uniqueness, you become an example to follow. You thus have the power to shatter the normative shackles that hold us all back and keep us from living together in mutual respect and acceptance. Your difference isn't part of the problem, it's part of the solution. It's a cure for our society, a society obsessed with normality. If you're not really a reader, but you want to understand more about autism, then this book is for you. The illustrations are top-notch, and I love how it gives a visual representation of her feelings and her stress building up throughout the day, starting out very calm and nice, and as she goes to work, it becomes more and more stressful. They zoom in on all the sensory issues that are contributing to her stress and how she's trying to hide so desperately that she's just barely managing to survive in this environment. And then, boom, the visual representations are amazing and so relatable. They describe better, actually, than purely word books can do. So if you're not a reader, and even if you are, this book is excellent. especially since many autistic people tend to think in visual terms rather than words. It was a lot of fun comparing the English translation with the Portuguese translation. And when I was looking for the page in English where it talks about her always walking at the fastest pace, I was like, where is it in the English? And then I realized that in the Portuguese version, it says, é sempre a velocidade máxima, de cabeça baixa, which in English they translated to, and when she walks, instead it's always at the same pace, looking down. And velocidade máxima is like top speed, which I relate to. I'm always walking very fast, wherever it is, especially if I've got some cool idea in my head. And when I'm walking with somebody, they often tell me that I'm walking too fast to ask me to slow down. I've also perfected the art of exhibit halls when I go to conferences, and I can walk through there very fast, seeing everything and nothing at the same time, if you get what I mean. Avoiding eye contact, but seeing everything while not getting drawn up into conversations with vendors and exhibitors that would be hard to extract myself from. So I relate to her walking everywhere at top speed. Invisible Differences shares what it was like for her before the diagnosis, when she knew there was something different about her, wondering how everyone else was able to do things, and just like life was on easy mode for them and so hard for her, always being judged. And how can you keep up your confidence when you're continually being told off and told you need to do something different? And so you learn to shove yourself into a tiny little box that tries its best to be what people think you need it to do. You hear people, even family members, saying things like, you need to get out more or you'll wind up with depression. Open up a little. You're borderline asocial. Go and meet people. And on and on and on. It's very stressful. Even your bosses are not often understanding of these differences. You dress weird, you talk weird, you move weird, and it's like you're an alien. This book really brings these things home in such a moving sort of way. Like, it's so clear. You can experience what she experiences at work with all of the people judging her. And it was like, wow, almost reading my own story, but in different words. Eventually, after enough years of being judged and trying desperately to change yourself to fit in with how other people want you to be, think you should be, you reach a breaking point where you know something has to change. And Marguerite began to research why she was the way she was, why so awkward. And eventually she came across some people who talked about the exact same experiences she was having, the exact same feelings she did. And wow, that when you discover these people, your tribe, it's like coming home. You feel like before you were the only one to experience these things, but when you find that you're not alone, it does a lot to lift that burden. But oftentimes it's hard to get a diagnosis as an adult, and when you're a woman especially, all of the testing centers usually have a month to years long wait. And when you finally get to see someone, they may not even believe you. You'll get told things like, stop believing everything you read on the internet. Oh, you don't appear autistic in every way. You're too successful. You have too many friends. You make eye contact. Whatever. There's so many outdated, inaccurate stereotypes, even amongst professionals. And then when you finally do get a diagnosis and you start telling people, hoping they'll believe you and finally understand, you're met with a lot of disbelief. People still don't get it. And you hear things like, oh, I heard it was tied to vaccines. Deep down, aren't we all a little autistic? No way. Autistic people drool nonstop and slam their head on walls. Ah, you're just kind of shy, and on and on and on. I really felt so bad for her. I've not had experiences quite to this level, but I've heard of so many people that meet this reaction. And when you get the diagnosis, it's a relief for you, but at the same time, it's as if you have to learn in a way to be a whole new person. You find different friends and different routines, and you break the bonds that were holding you back. But this is not a easy process. It's not fast. It's slow and sometimes painful, certainly confusing as you process your diagnosis and learn how to be authentically yourself. You will probably lose friends, perhaps even family members will not be supportive of you. Just like Marguerite had to break up with her boyfriend who refused to be understanding of her limitations when she finally said, no more of these things that make me uncomfortable. People will hear it as an excuse sometimes, but it's not. And you have to be understanding of yourself first before anything else. And as it says here, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on how well it can climb trees, it'll spend its life thinking it's stupid. And even if you have a diagnosis and are now a protected class of employee, good luck trying to get accommodations in the office. And I felt so bad for Marguerite going to the HR lady and asking for these things. It's ridiculous to what lengths employers will go to make themselves look good on paper, but not give you any good accommodations that will help you out. And one of the biggest problems is being expected to attend office social events and socialize a lot at the office versus go in and do your work and go out. I don't mean, being a terrible employee and ignoring everyone, but why should our performance be judged on our ability to socialize and dance the proper social dance rather than our qualifications and ability to do the actual job? Eventually, Marguerite finds people in her town that are a lot like her and develops wonderful new supportive friendships. And they encourage her to do something about the lack of knowledge, the lack of information, to start a blog and raise awareness of autism, because in Europe and a lot of other countries, even more so than Europe, there is such a lack of information on what autism is. So many harmful stereotypes, if people have even really heard of it at all, beyond the name. And through starting this blog and finding other people like herself, Marguerite is able to learn who she is and reconstruct her life in a way that makes sense to her, that accommodates her needs. A diagnosis may not change who you are, but it certainly changes your perception. Concretely speaking, the challenges she faces remain the same, but her perception of them has changed. Not only has she learned to know and love herself, but she has also developed critical opinions on the ways difference is pathologized. Eventually, Marguerite's blog morphed into this book, and actually, the artist isn't autistic, correction from the beginning, but this proves that neurotypicals and neurodivergence can work together to produce this beautiful work of art. At the end of the book, there's a short history of autism and an explanation of what it is, as well as how to support and set up people with autism or Asperger's for success. She includes a list of resources as well for further study and support. I rate Invisible Differences a 4.5 overall. It's an excellent book for those who want to quickly read and get a good, concise understanding of the experiences, what it's like to be autistic, especially if you're not really much of a reader. It's very accurate, although it still uses the terminology Asperger's, which some in the autism community find rather problematic. But in some countries, it's still a valid diagnosis, although the DSM-5 has removed it as a separate diagnosis and lumped it in with autism spectrum disorder. So what misconceptions of autism have you personally encountered? Let me know down in the comments what you would like to say to those harmful stereotypes. And thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share. And if you're interested in more neurodiversity related content, then click here to see my latest review. Don't forget to comment what you would like me to review next, and subscribe so you don't miss my latest recommendation.